without further ado, I am calling the meeting to order, and we're going to start with Jay Gonzalez, who is one of the three Democratic candidates for governor, is going to speak. Jay Gonzalez.
Well, thank you, Richard, for having me back. It's great to be back in New Bedford, and I really appreciate all of you choosing to show up tonight. It actually matters to show up to stuff like this, right?
Yep.
I mean, we have learned a lot from this president of ours. Unfortunately, we learn new lessons every single day. But one of the lessons I've taken from his election, and it's something President Obama talked about in his farewell address, if you remember that. It feels like years ago at this point. But it is the fact that our liberties and our democracy and the strength of our communities, these fundamental American privileges, are not self-fulfilling. They need us. They need us to breathe life into them and to protect them and be vigilant about them. And we cannot take them for granted. And the good news is I've been campaigning for governor now for 14 months and going all over this state. There are people showing up to stuff like this who've never been to anything like it before. And they are fired up and energized and wanting to do something. And that is good. And we need to build on that energy and sustain it. And a lot of it is focused on Washington right now for good reason. We have a president taking us backwards every single day. And we need to be focused there and we need to fight there. But we also need to recognize that the best we're going to do in Washington right now is hold the line. I mean, we are moving backwards and the question is how far? The only place we're going to move forward is here in Massachusetts. And moving forward and making progress, that is a fundamental part of who we are too. Now, my entire life, I've been really fortunate. I've been surrounded by people who've proven our potential for progress. The very first time I ever got politically active was the summer before my senior year in college. I went to work on a campaign for a guy named John Glenn. He was running for re-election to United States Senate in 1992 as a Democrat in Ohio. And I was running all over the state of Ohio, handing stuff out for John Glenn at county fairs. And there are 88 counties in Ohio, so I was very busy. But a couple of times, I actually got to drive John Glenn to events. And it still blows my mind to think about the fact this man who sat in Friendship 7 and orbited the earth was sitting next to me in my Ford Tempo and letting me drive, which was very scary to think about. But this is an American hero who literally reached for the stars and got there. I got to serve as a cabinet secretary for Governor Deval Patrick, and you all know his life story. It proves the American dream exists, and he never lost sight of all those continuing to reach for it. And there are many others in my life who've proven this point about our potential for progress. People like my wife and my daughters and friends and colleagues, but no one more than my parents. My mom is from Cleveland, Ohio, and during college she went away on a foreign exchange program to Spain. 9 months later, you see where this story is going? 9 months later, she came back married to my 19-year-old Spanish father and pregnant with me. And I love telling that story to parents who have kids going on foreign exchange programs. Really freaks them out. It was tough at first, but my mom had to drop out of college to take care of me. My dad didn't speak English and he'd never been to college. But he worked his way from laying bricks in a city sewer system to becoming a successful small businessman and a proud American citizen. My mom went back to college when I was in high school and became a public school teacher and a member of the teachers union. They put all three sons through college, and this year, against all odds, they will be celebrating their 48th wedding anniversary, which is incredible if you think about it, right? So through that example, and just through the way they parented us, they always encouraged us to set high expectations for ourselves. And they instilled in us a belief that with hard work and a little help, reaching those expectations was actually possible. Now, those values aren't unique to me and my family. Those are our values, American values. And no one has reached higher, worked harder, and accomplished more together than the incredible people of Massachusetts. Think about it. We started the Revolutionary War. We were the first to establish a public school and a public park. The first to recognize one's right to marry whoever you love. the first to make universal health insurance coverage a reality, and the list goes on and on and on. This is who we are. We have always been a leader in this state. But we are not leading right now. Not under Charlie Baker. He's a status quo, wait-and-see governor. I've been frustrated by how little he's accomplished, but I've been much more frustrated by how little he's even tried. Now, yes, it is true. He's popular. But it is easy to be popular when you don't do anything and you never take a stand, and your whole approach to the job is being cautious instead of courageous. If you actually ask people in Massachusetts who say, I'm fine with Charlie Baker, why they like Charlie Baker, the answer is never, he's doing a great job fixing our transportation system or making progress on some other issue that affects people's lives in a very real way. It's usually something like, he seems nice, and I'm so glad he isn't a crazy Republican like exists in other parts of the country. Well, when did the measure whether our governor's doing a good job become that he's nice and isn't crazy? Right? I'll tell you when, November 2016. Thanks to Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress, the bar is so low that people are relieved by mediocrity. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. There are way too many working families in this state who are still being left behind, and way too little is being done to help them. And people forget this about Charlie Baker. But he has been terrible about standing up against hate and discrimination at a time where we desperately need public leaders standing up against hate and discrimination. He ordered state police to detain immigrants, opposed Syrian refugees resettling in Massachusetts. He defended southern states flying Confederate flags at their state capitals, the very symbols of hate and bigotry and intolerance that we saw on display in Charlottesville. And he stayed silent on transgender rights legislation, only signing it when forced to do so and doing it behind closed doors. You may remember Maura Healey had to hold a fake bill signing ceremony so the people whose rights were protected by that legislation could celebrate the protection of their rights, because Charlie Baker wouldn't do it. It's not okay. It's not okay. It's not who we are. And it is definitely not leadership. Now, you all will probably remember Charlie Baker's case for being governor wasn't about leadership. It was that he was going to be a good manager. Well, he has failed at that as well. And I know about good management. When I worked for Governor Patrick and oversaw the state budget during much tougher times, during the Great Recession, we managed through that successfully while increasing investment to record levels in public education and infrastructure, and we achieved the highest bond ratings in state history during that time. Charlie Baker is struggling to manage the budget during a period of economic growth. He continues to cut funding for programs that desperately need it. And for the first time in 30 years, one of the rating agencies just downgraded Massachusetts' bond rating under Charlie Baker. And the reason they gave is he isn't following the responsible policies we put in place when I was there. And this is supposed to be his core competency and is literally his entire case for being governor. As CEO of a health insurance company that covered low-income people in the Medicaid program, I turned our company around, grew it by multiple times. We were considered a leader in addressing the opioid epidemic. So I know about good management. And we can do a better job managing state government. I am certain of that. But here's the thing. Unlike Governor Baker, I believe managing government well is necessary, but not sufficient. Government is our instrument, not our enemy. It's the vehicle through which we empower each other and support each other and protect each other. And it's not good enough to simply accept the world the way it exists and try to manage it better. We need a governor who's going to see the way the world should be and take us to that place. Let's aim high. Let's aim high. Let's be us. Let's give working families across this state a better deal, an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top. How about a living wage? Paid family leave, affordable housing, debt-free college. If I'm governor, I will work to ensure that every single child and family in this state has access to high-quality, affordable childcare and preschool. A transportation system, this is a crazy idea. I'm going to try this out on you. A transportation system across this entire state that people can actually depend on to get to work on time. A single-payer healthcare system that's simpler, cheaper, and does a better job keeping people healthy. This is a former health insurance CEO telling you we need to get rid of health insurance companies. And as the only candidate in this race with experience in the healthcare industry, I will get it done. Let's aim high when it comes to other big challenges we face, like climate change and the opioid epidemic and gun violence. Let's aim high when it comes to expanding opportunities for women and communities of color. Let's get serious about sexual assault and harassment. If I'm governor, I'll keep a bright light on the Me Too movement and insist that we stop tolerating the intolerable. And most important, let's aim high when it comes to how we treat people. We need a governor who sees the value and potential of every single person, who respects everyone, who doesn't need coaching and pressure and second chances to get it right. And I want you to know that if I'm your governor, it won't matter what color you are, what your sexual orientation is, what you believe, whether you're from New Bedford or from Springfield, whether you just came to this country, you have a disability, you're a Syrian refugee. I see you, I believe in you, and as your governor, I will work for you. We have always done better when we see our differences as strengths, and when we recognize that beneath those differences are many more similarities. When we treat each other with respect and dignity and love. So let's do it. Let's aim high. If we do, I know we can build a better future for everybody. It's the lesson my parents taught me. It's the American story. It's what the people of Massachusetts have proven over and over again. And it's what we should expect from our government and from ourselves. And that's why I'm running for governor. I'm not a career politician, just trying to get to my next elected office. I'm not going to make whatever political calculation I need to make just to win at whatever cost. That's not why I'm in this. I'm in this because I care about people, and I want to make a difference in people's lives. And if that's the type of candidate you want, if you believe we need to aim high, if you want Massachusetts to actually be a leader again, then I really hope to earn your support, and I hope you will join our grassroots campaign. Thank you very much.
Two things. I'm glad you suggested, said that you want to support a living wage, which means I think you mean that you're in support of the raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour to start anyway, within the next 4 years as the bill calls for, as well as the paid family and medical leave. I didn't hear you say anything about the millionaire's tax, but do you support the millionaire's tax? That the okay, and. Then and you did mention something, which I'm glad you said about making college affordable.
Yep.
What do you envision as your plan in terms of maybe how long it might take? But I mean, because I know personally, and I know there are a few states that have believe in or have endorsed the idea of free college public education for the first 4 years.
Yep.
Some have done 2 years, some have done 4 years. But what is your position on that?
Yeah. Before I answer that, can I just speak to a couple of the other things you said to clarify? So I do support the millionaire's tax. It is, we need more revenue in state government to make some of these investments that we need to make. And this is the fairest, most meaningful new revenue proposal we've had for a very long time. It would generate about $2 billion a year that we desperately need for transportation, education. And while it's a blunt approach, it is a fair approach. We've got a regressive tax structure in Massachusetts right now where those who make the least pay the highest percentage of their income in taxes and those who make the most pay the lowest. So this would help rectify that a little bit. Ask 19,500 taxpayers who are doing great to pay a little bit more that we desperately need. So I'm a big supporter of it. And if it doesn't pass or the Supreme Judicial Court knocks it down, I will propose some other progressive way to raise the revenue we need. And on the $15 minimum wage, I not only support getting it to $15, I also support what is part of the Raise Up agenda, which is to then index increases to inflation, which not all three Democratic candidates agree with. So that is something I think is a really important element of it. On college affordability. So this is a big issue, right? I mean, there are way too many people in this state who want to go, who can't afford it, and many who do go, who end up burdened with student debt for many years. Our public college and university system, I think, needs to be affordable for every single person. For some on the lower end of the income scale, that would mean, from my perspective, that it'd be free. New York, it's free for people who make up to $125,000 a year. It's not for people after that. I think the key is we need to focus on affordability. No one should have to incur debt to go to college. I do think people who are making a lot of money in families that have a lot of resources. We've got lots of priorities we need to invest state resources in, many of which I just talked about. I think if we can get to affordability and debt-free for everybody, that is a huge step forward, and I think would help address the problem we have in this state.
Thank you. Jay, could you, you talked a lot about the need to defeat Baker.
Yeah.
Which I think everybody in this room already agrees with. So could you talk a little bit about what else distinguishes you think, what are your special competencies that distinguish you from the other candidates?
Yes, thank you for the question. So let me say I'm spending lots of quality time with Bob Massey and Seti Warren, and they're both great people. And if either one of them becomes the Democratic nominee for governor, I will support them 100%, and I hope you will too. But I'm asking you to support me in the primary. And I think while there are lots of similarities in terms of where we stand on positions, more similarities than differences, there are three things I'd ask you to consider that differentiate me. One is I'm the only candidate in the race with leadership experience in state government, getting big things done. I was Governor Patrick's Secretary of Administration and Finance. In that role, in addition to overseeing the state budget and a lot of other stuff, I was often his point person for negotiating a lot of the big pieces of legislation we got through the legislature during that time. Things like the Transportation Reform Law in 2009, the Healthcare Cost Containment Law in 2012. So I've been there. I've done it. I know how the process works. I've worked successfully through it. It's not going to matter what we all want to do unless we actually do it and deliver on it. So that's a big differentiator. The other thing I'd say, if you care about single-payer health care, all three Democratic candidates support it. I'm the only one with experience in the healthcare industry. I know the healthcare industry. I was CEO of a health insurance company that covered low-income people in the Medicaid program for almost 4 years. I was chair of the board of the Health Connector for 3.5 years when we successfully implemented Massachusetts health reform before Obamacare. I know the industry. I know how dysfunctional it is. This is really important that we do this. We got to do it thoughtfully and successfully. Single payer in and of itself is a means. It's not an end. And to get to a simpler, cheaper, better system that actually works better for people and ensures equal access to health care for every single person in this state, which the current system does not do, I think I'm best positioned to deliver on that. The last thing I would say is we need to beat Baker. And I think I am best positioned to do that in the general election. We have very similar backgrounds. We're both very tall. But we both had the same job in state government, Secretary of A&F. We both were CEOs of health insurance companies. His whole case for being governor is he's a great manager, and he's actually failed at it. We need to expose his failings, and I think I'm best positioned to credibly do that. I'm going to be able to make apples-to-apples comparisons like I mentioned in my remarks. Like when I managed the state budget, did it successfully during much harder times, highest bond ratings in state history, and you screwed it up. The other guys I don't think are going to be able to go after him on those issues with the same level of credibility. And we've already proven, I think, that we've built the strongest campaign. I'm the only one of the three that's never run for statewide office before. And we've raised more money from more donors. We have many more legislative endorsements than the other two candidates. We have lots of political support from lots of key activists all over the state. I think we perform better at the caucuses based on our assessment in terms of getting committed delegates elected. We've got a union endorsement from one of the MBTA unions. We're about to unveil a very big state employee union endorsement before the end of this week. Like, we've got a lot of momentum. And so I think to date we've proven we can build the strongest campaign, which we're going to need. And by the way, we're going to win this election. Do not doubt that. We are going to win this election. There's going to be a huge Democratic turnout this year. The blue wave, Elizabeth Warren on the ballot at the same time, the millionaire's tax, the minimum. Democrats are going to turn out to vote. And as long as they're informed about the choice, which is going to be between a governor who has no record of making any meaningful difference in people's lives, no agenda to do so, and has been terrible about standing up for people, versus someone who desperately wants to do so, and in my case, I would argue, has the leadership experience to deliver on it, I think people are going to choose that, as long as they're informed about the choice, which is where all of you come in. We need to have a strong enough campaign to make sure people are informed about the choice. And we're off to a great start, but I'm hoping all of you will choose to join our team and knock on some doors and make some calls and put bumper stickers on your car and tell your friends to get out and vote for this campaign.
just to find out a little bit about more about your healthcare experience and what your position is on the Safe Patient Limit ballot campaign.
I support the Safe Patient Limit ballot campaign. While it's a blunt, it'd be preferable to do this legislatively or to not have to do it at all because the hospitals are properly staffing. This has been many, many years, and I think we need to take this action in order to make sure that patients are safe. And I support it. I hope it passes. And part of what needs to be our highest priority is, I believe healthcare and access to good quality healthcare is a human right. And right now, people don't have access to the healthcare services they need in an equal way. And the quality of care, even here in Massachusetts, is not as good as it should be. This is one element of it, making sure that we've got safe staffing ratios in our hospitals and that it isn't being compromised because of financial pressures. There's so much wasted cost in our system that moving to a single-payer system could help cut out, that we should be able to afford, while saving money overall, a system that actually works better for people. And this is one element of it.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks again,
Great.
Jay.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank
Yeah,
you for coming.
appreciate it. All right. Thank you, everybody.